Sunday action, I'm talking about the Dolphins at the Ravens, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. On Sunday, September 18th, Baltimore is -3, totals 43.5. Now we saw a half a point move toward Miami and a 2-point move downward on the total. Now the Ravens had a dominant defensive performance against the Jets in Week 1. They took care of New York 24-9, and they limited New York to just 83 yards on the ground. Now Marcus Williams, he led the charge with 12 tackles and a pick. Meanwhile, Chuck Clark and Patrick Queen, they combined for 17 tackles between the two of them. Now they're taking on a Miami squad who rushed for only 65 yards in Week 1 against New England. And in these teams' last 10 head-to-head meetings, Miami covered the point spread only one time. Now injury-wise, Rowe, Carter, Jackson, Ahmed, and Connor, they are questionable for Miami. Meanwhile, Peters, Seymour, Stanley, and Dobbins, they are listed as questionable for Baltimore. When it comes to the total, both teams saw their Week 1 openers fall well below the posted number. As a matter of fact, both organizations went 7-3 to the under in their last 10 outings respectively, and of course, that obviously dates back to last season. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Baltimore -3 and the under 43.5. Next matchup, Carolina taking on the Giants, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Now, the New York Football Giants are -3, totals 43. We did see a half a point move toward the Giants and the under in this one. Despite their Week 1 shocker, I still don't think the G-men are in any position to be laying points. They threw for just 156 yards on Sunday. Literally no threat to throw the football. And even on the 2-point conversion that they scored on, they were stuffed. That was the wrong play call. They were stuffed. It was just a Herculean effort by Saquon to get into the end zone. Bad play call, should have lost that game. Now, on the defensive end of things, the Giants actually let Ryan Tannehill throw for over 265 yards. They're actually in the bottom 10 right now in pass defense after a week. They're facing a Carolina defense on the other side who's, very tough to throw the ball against. They actually held the Browns to under 150 yards passing in their opener. I realized they lost the game, but you just couldn't throw against them. Of course, Xavier Woods, he led the charge with double-digit tackles and a PD. Meanwhile, Brian Burns and Jeremy Chin, they combined for 15 tackles between the two of them. Now, as far as the injury report for the Giants, Ojulari, Thibodeau, Robinson, and Belton, they're all listed as questionable for Sunday. When it comes to the number, the Giants have seen 6 out of their last 10 meetings with Carolina get over the total. So if you're into historical trends, certainly want to think about that one there. Meanwhile, the Panthers saw their opener this year get 8 points above their posted total for that game. I'm going to lean toward Carolina +3, keeping this one close, over 53 points. Next matchup, Colts, Jags, 1 o'clock East. Indianapolis is -4, totals 47. And we saw a 1.5 point move upward on the total in this one. And as lackluster as the Colts looked in Week 1, I definitely have concerns about this Jacksonville defense. They allowed 305 yards passing in the opener, which currently ranks in the bottom 5 in the league right now. They're also facing Matt Ryan, who had little issue moving the football on Sunday. Matty Ice threw for over 350 yards. And Michael Pittman Jr., he had a huge day as well. Pittman had 9 catches for $121 and a score. And of course, when it comes to running the football, Jonathan Taylor still looks like his old self. He touched it 31 times for $161 and a touchdown. And when it comes to defensive play, the Colts did a nice job stopping the run in Week 1. They allowed only 77 yards rushing, and they were led by Kwity Paye with 7 tackles and a couple of sacks. Now, this Colts D is officially in the top 10 in total yards. Amazing how they only tied against Houston in the opener. I mean, they dominated in all kinds of statistical categories. Now, injury-wise, Leonard is questionable for Indy. And when it comes to the total in this one, when it comes to the scoring, this game's actually being featured as another one of my NFL tier package bets on my website. So if you want to see whether I'm pounding the over or the under in this one, There's only one way to find out, and that's to sign up for my NFL tier package bets using the link in the description section below. But as far as making a free pick is concerned with this game, I'm going to lean toward Indy -4, getting the job done against the number. All right, next contest, Patriots taking on the Steelers, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in the Steel City. Now, New England is the 2-point favorite on the road, totals 40.5. We actually saw a 1-point move toward the Patriots and the over in this one. But regardless of that line move, we're still looking at a New England team who notoriously starts slow. And as far as last week was concerned, they were hardly competitive offensively. The Patriots' leading receiver was Jacoby Myers, who had just 55 yards. Meanwhile, New England's leading rusher was Damian Harris, who ran for only 48 yards on the day. Now, after week 1, New England is officially in the bottom 10 in total offense. And once again here, guys, they scored just 7 points in their opening day loss to Miami. Now, they're taking on a Pittsburgh defense who had 7 sacks in week 1. We're looking at 7 sacks, 5 takeaways, and a block kick. Alex Highsmith led the D with 3 sacks on the day, along with 9 tackles. And speaking of tackles, Minkah Fitzpatrick and Miles Jack, they combined for 24 tackles between the two of them. And even though Pittsburgh's offense wasn't prolific, they did manage to score 23 points, and they didn't turn the football over at all. Now, injury-wise, Cole, Wallace, Spillane, and Harris, they are listed as questionable for the Steelers. And, of course, TJ Watt, he's out indefinitely with a pec injury. That's terrible. Normally, those pectoral injuries are season enders, but he hasn't officially been ruled as out for the season. But, yeah, he got a pulled titty right now. Meanwhile, for the Pats on the other side, Phillips, Jones, Bledsoe, and Wade, they are listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total, both squads saw their week 1 contest fall under the number. They also saw unders in 6 out of their last 10 head-to-head meetings. So once again, if you guys notice, I do tend to use some historical trends. It's not of importance with my handicapping, but we use it, regularly. So if you're into historical trends here, plenty of unders to go around. I'm going to lean toward Pittsburgh +2, keeping this one close, and the under 40.5. Next ball game, Bucks, Saints, 1 o'clock East. Tampa Bay is -3, totals 44. Now we're seeing some pretty good two-way action on both the side and the total in this one. Really not a whole lot of movement in the early wagering here. And if you want to see whether I'm betting on the side or the total in this one, this game's being featured as one of my NFL tier package bets on my website for week 2. And once again, the link for that play is in the description section below. So once again, guys, if you want to see, whether I'm picking a winner or betting the total in that one, you got to be signed up for my NFL tier package bets on my website. And as I said before, if you sign up for that package, you're going to get access to that membership every single day, all the way until October 1st. All right, next matchup, guys, it is going to be Commanders at the Lions, and that is going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Detroit's the 3-point favorite at home, totals 49. And even though the Lions did have a nice cover against the Eagles, their defense simply just wasn't good enough Sunday. They just were not good enough. Swiss cheese. Really just did not get the job done. They're officially in the bottom 3 right now in yards allowed after week 1. And, of course, they're taking on a Commanders team who had little issue throwing the ball in their week 1 victory. Of course, much to the chagrin of a lot of Eagles fans, Carson Wentz, he looked a lot like his old self, throwing for 313 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, the Commanders actually finished week 1 in the top 10 in total yards. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Schweitzer, Curl, and Turner, they're all listed as questionable for Washington. Meanwhile, for Detroit, Okwara, Kramer, and Melifonwu, they are listed as questionable for the Lions. Now, total-wise, I'm really not expecting a defensive clinic in this one. Both teams saw their week 1 openers get over the line. As a matter of fact, the Lions have seen 5 out of their last 7 games dating back to last season get over the total. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Washington +3 in the over 49. Next matchup, it is going to be Jets, Browns, 1 o'clock East. Cleveland's -7, totals 41. We saw movement toward the Browns and the under in this one. We actually saw a 1-point move toward Cleveland and the under. But as much as people love the Browns after week 1, I'm just not sure they're good enough to be laying a touchdown in this spot. I know the Jets stink, but kind of a big number for a Cleveland team to be laying. Jacoby Brissett was literally like no threat throwing the football on Sunday. He completed only 52% of his passes for 147 yards. Meanwhile, his second leading receiver was Kareem Hunt out of the backfield with 24 yards receiving. Now, on the defensive end, on the other end of the football, the Browns did give up 24 points to a Baker-led Panther team. So, it's not like they're impenetrable. They had some soft spots on Sunday against the Panthers. Now, they're playing a Jet squad here on Sunday who actually played some exceptionally good defense in week 1 despite the outcome. New York held Baltimore to under 65 yards rushing on the day. And after Sunday's performance, the Jets are officially in the top 10 in total yards allowed. C.J. Mosley had a team-best 11 tackles on the day. Meanwhile, Quincy Williams and Jordan Whitehead, they combined for double-digit tackles between the two of them on Sunday. Now, when it comes to the numbers, 7 out of these teams' last 10 head-to-head meetings did fall under the total. So once again, another historical trend there for you. As a matter of fact, New York held Cleveland to just 18 points a game during that time frame I just mentioned. I'm going to lean toward the Jets +7 under 41. Next ball game, it is going to be Seahawks, Niners, 4:05 East. San Francisco's -10, totals 42.5. Now, we saw a 1-point move toward the Niners and the over in this one. And if you go back to last year, this San Francisco offense just hasn't been clicking. They've scored 23 points or less in 5 out of their last 6 ball games. Of course, like I just said, that's dating back to last year. And even though week 1 was kind of an anomaly because of the bad weather, we've still seen poor production out of this Niners offensive unit over the past season or so, regardless of quarterback, especially down the home stretch last year. Now, injury-wise, George Kittle's still questionable to play in week 2. He actually sat out Sunday against the Bears. Now, they're taking on a Seattle squad who pretty much shocked the Broncos on Monday Night Football. Big win for them. The Seahawks allowed only 16 points and had several timely takeaways, especially in the red zone. Cornerback Mike Jackson, he has a pair of red zone fumble recoveries along with 4 tackles on the day. Meanwhile, Jordan Brooks and Cody Barton, they combined for 22 total tackles. Now, injury-wise, Ott, Burns, Lewis, Robinson, and Walker, they are all listed as questionable for Seattle. When it comes to the total, Seattle's actually held the Niners to just 20 points a game in their last 10 meetings. Both squads also saw their week 1 openers fall well below the total. I'm going to lean towards Seattle +10 under 42.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Falcons, Rams, 4:05 East. The LA Rams are -10, totals 47.5. And as miserable as the Rams looked in their opener, they're still a better coached ball club, in my opinion, with more talent. Cooper Kupp, as usual, 13 catches for $128 and the lone touchdown on Thursday. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the ball, I know they gave up a lot of points, but the Rams still ended up forcing 4 turnovers. So they gave that offense a chance to get back in the game. Troy Hill, he had an interception along with 8 tackles. Meanwhile, Nick Scott had a pick and 7 tackles himself. Now, no real surprise here, guys. The Rams are currently in the top 3 in takeaways following week 1. They're facing a Falcon team who played some pretty bad defense in their week 1 loss to New Orleans. The Falcons allowed 27 points and over 150 yards on the ground. When it comes to offensive production, the Falcons didn't have a passing touchdown on the day. Now, injury-wise, we may see Van Jefferson back in action for Los Angeles. He's questionable with that knee. When it comes to the total in this one, I can't imagine Atlanta slowing these guys down from scoring. The Falcons did see their opener fly double digits above the posted number. And once again, when it comes to historical trends, the over actually hit in 7 out of these teams' last 10 meetings. So I'm going to, kind of lean toward the Rams in a bounce back spot here. I know this is a big number, but they should be able to get the job done here. Give me the Rams minus 10 and the over 47.5. All right, next matchup, Cards, Raiders, 425 East. Las Vegas is minus 6, totals 51.5. Now, I do hate this number here after a loss, but I really think, Arizona is in bad shape organizationally. They looked in disarray in both offensive and defensive performances in week 1. Really weren't even competitive with the Chiefs. Now, they did allow a league worst 44 points in week 1. They allowed Patty Mahomes to throw for 360 yards. And of course, on the offensive side of things, they looked equally as disorganized. Kyler Murray threw for under 195 yards. Meanwhile, Arizona's leading rusher was Kyler Murray, who scrambled for just 29 yards on the day. So definitely a team who did not establish a proper run game. And you got to be able to do that against a team like Kansas City. You got to run the ball against them. But anyway, they're taking on a Raider team who played fairly tough defense against one of the higher-powered offenses in the league in week 1. This Raider D actually held the Chargers to under 80 yards rushing on Sunday. Jonathan Abraham and Max Crosby, they combined for 22 tackles between the two of them. And even though Derek Carr made a bunch of mistakes, he connected with Devontae Adams 10 times for 141 yards and a score. Now, injury-wise, Bolden, Perryman, Billings, James, and Turner are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Cards, Watt, Mullen, and Moore, they are listed as questionable for them. And when it comes to the total in this one, I'm not really expecting a defensive clinic in this one. Plus, the Cards saw their opener fly double digits over the posted total for their opener. I'm actually going to go ahead and lean toward Las Vegas minus 6 and the over 51.5. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Texans, Broncos, 425 East. Denver's minus 10, totals 43.5. Now, we actually did see a half a point move toward the Broncos and the under, believe it or not. And, of course, as bad as these teams, as bad as Denver looked on Monday Night Football, this is a pretty good core group of players, a lot of talent. They just kind of fell subject to some untimely mistakes. Russell Wilson still torched Seattle for 340 yards through the air, no interceptions, not a whole lot of mistakes there throwing the football. And, of course, Jerry Jeudy had 4 grabs for 102 yards and a touchdown. Now, I've said this before. I believe I said it last week, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. For some reason, certain NFL coaches have a bad tendency of taking the ball out of their best players' hands. Green Bay does it all the time. They've been doing it ever since the young guy got, LaFleur got the head coaching job. He takes the ball out of Rodgers' hands in big spots. So Denver did that last night. They did it in the red zone. And as far as Monday Night Football was concerned, it happened to Russ. Not only with the late game, I'm not even talking about the late game field goal chance. I'm talking about multiple red zone opportunities. Let Russ cook. Let him do his thing. Now, defensively, the Broncos looked real solid in many different facets of their opener. They allowed under 255 yards of total offense against Seattle. They pretty much won in every aspect except for the score. Now, Bradley Chubb, he also had a pair of sacks along with 6 tackles. They're taking on a Texans team who somehow managed to tie Indy. I don't know how. Took them to OT and tied them. That's just as good as a win for that Texans organization. And I'll tell you what, that tie, it wasn't because of a stifling defense. The Texans allowed over 500 yards of total offense to Indy. And on the offensive end of things, when they had the ball, they couldn't even establish a run game. They actually rushed for only 77 yards in week 1. Now, total-wise, I don't see the Texans moving the ball with ease. They also saw their opener fall a touchdown below the total, and that included overtime. Meanwhile, Denver on the other side, they saw their openers stay double-digit points under the number themselves. I'm going to lean toward Denver minus 10, under 43.5. Next matchup, Bengals, Cowboys, 425 East. Cincinnati's minus 7, totals 43. Movement toward the Bengals and the over in this one. Not surprised about the movement toward the Bengals, but we are seeing movement toward the over. And even though the Bengals had a bunch of special teams miscues to lose that opener, they did look pretty good on both sides of the ball in different spots. Defensively, they gave up just 267 total yards against Pittsburgh. And as a matter of fact, they held Mitch Trubisky to under 195 yards passing. Now, offensively, on the other side of the ball, Joe Cool continues to do his thing. Burrow threw for over 335 yards and a couple of scores. He also connected with Jamar Chase 10 times for $129 and a touchdown. Now, taking on a Cowboys team who looked pitiful on offense against the Bucs. They looked pitiful before Dak got hurt. Had no chance at moving the football. They threw for under 175 yards, and they were held to just 71 yards rushing. You got two pretty good backs in Pollard and Elliott, and you ran for just 71 yards. I know they have problems at left tackle, but run to the right side. And, of course, alongside of Dak Prescott being out for a couple of weeks here, this Cowboy defense had some problem areas as well. They let old man Lenny Fournette run all over them Sunday. Dallas gave up over 150 yards rushing to Tampa Bay. And when it comes to the total, the Bengals may run into some issues stopping the pass rush. Offensively, they already have problems giving up sacks. Both teams did see their season openers fall under the total as well. Might not see as much scoring as maybe some people think. I'm going to lean towards Cincinnati minus 7, under 43. All right, next matchup, Bears-Packers at 8:20 p.m. East. Green Bay is minus 9.5, totals 43. As bad as Rodgers looked on Sunday, that's just the way he starts off seasons now. He's disengaged with the offseason and preseason. Probably not working out, definitely not throwing the ball much, not engaging with his teammates. And I got to imagine he probably doesn't watch a lot of film, especially against divisional opponents since he's played them a million times. But as far as the Bears are concerned, Rodgers rarely loses to them. And as a matter of fact, the Packers actually won 9 out of their last 10 head-to-head meetings with Chicago. And they covered the point spread in 80% of those ball games. Now, the Pack also got a real good defensive performance out of Devondre Campbell last week, who had 11 tackles against Minnesota on Sunday. Now, they're taking on a Bears team who probably would have performed just as similar in fair weather as they did in the slop on Sunday. I don't think their numbers would have been that much different. And when it comes to covering the number, the Bears have failed to cover in 6 out of their last 9 dating back to last season. Bad team, don't cover a lot of numbers. Not a great spot to be backing Chicago in. Now, injury-wise, Jones is questionable for the Bears. Meanwhile, for Green Bay, Bakhtiari, Lazard, Jenkins, Nixon, and Walker are questionable for them. When it comes to the total, the Packs averaged just about 28 points a game in their last 10 meetings with Chicago. They also saw 6 out of their last 9 ball games dating back to last year get over the total. I'm going to lean toward Green Bay minus 9.5, over 43.